What is forgiveness? Forgiveness, in a psychological sense, is the intentional and voluntary process by which one who may initially feel victimized or wrong goes through a change in feelings and attitude regarding a given offender and overcomes the impact of the offense, including negative emotions such as resentment and a desire for vengeance. It is to let go of resentment or vengeance towards someone who harmed you. This may sound noble and merciful, but it is not satisfying. You cannot feel resentment or vengeance towards someone at the moment of harm. In this case, you would have no emotions to let go of. In another case, you may have no choice but to live with your emotions of vengeance and resentment because you cannot act on them. Over time, they slowly fade away and you forget about the incident. Do these scenarios still count as you forgiving someone? Your lack of emotion towards a given transgression does not negate the harm done, and your lack of ability to punish does not mean you have forgiven. Do not attribute to forgiveness what is endurance. Only a person capable of punishing can forgive, and the emotions of the victim do not factor into the magnitude of the transgression. Without emotion, all sins are equally as bad. No sin is worse than another. James 2:10-11. For whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. For he that said, do not commit adultery, said also, do not kill. Now if thou commit no adultery, yet if thou kill, thou art become a transgressor of the law. The psychological definition of forgiveness falls short because emotions do not matter when it comes to transgressions of some given law. There is only crime and punishment. Every sin must be punished. Therefore, for forgiveness to take place, there must be a third party, because forgiveness is someone else taking your punishment for you. You can never be forgiven by the person you did wrong, only by the one that bears the punishment of your actions. But even this is insufficient, because wrong has been done to the one that has taken your punishment. No lesson has been taught. You have learnt nothing. The punisher is satisfied. You are indebted, and the punished seeks to punish. Should there be love in the punisher's heart, then he shall seek no payment from you. Nonetheless, no one is forgiven. His emotions have no weight in the crime against him. You still have a debt you must atone for. It has just transferred from one person to another. But what if you punish yourself for the wrong you have done to another? Can you forgive yourself? Surely you shall owe no debt, because no innocent person has been hurt. As the punished sinner, you shall seek no vengeance, because you deserved your own wrath. But still, your wrath is your own, and not that of whom you have sinned against. This is insufficient, because you are not the one that was transgressed upon. You know not the magnitude of your sin. You will never know the wrath the other desires to bring down upon you until he has brought it down. And at that point, there is no forgiveness. So only the transgressed upon can be the one who punishes. No other person can stand in your place, because that is just transference. You cannot be the one that is punished, because that is not forgiveness. Thus, the only person left for the punisher to punish for your sins is himself. What madness! That one would inflict more pain on himself for the pain inflicted on him? There is no benefit in this act, neither to you or himself. It makes no difference. Rationality fails. Within a rational framework, forgiving is an illogical action. It makes no sense. No rational man can forgive or be forgiven. No intellect is capable of the act. This means that to be purely rational, you must punish all transgressions. None can be left unatoned for. None can be forgotten. Even then, the punisher does not know the appropriate wrath to bring down upon the sinner, because he is not the one that has created the law. He is not his own creation. Before the law, the sinner had not known sin. Now that he has known, to not punish sin would be to negate the law. Romans 7:7. I had not known sin, but by the law. We can come up with our own laws. This is especially prevalent when we are playing games with other people. We have a list of rules that everyone should follow for the game to be fun. There are some games where, when a rule is broken, the game stops functioning altogether. In most games, a broken rule doesn't break the game. It just makes it unfair or less fun for the other people playing. A broken rule can cause damage to another, effectively eliminating them from the game altogether. Rules are there to stop people from being eliminated unfairly from a certain game. It was Nietzsche that said that men would have to make their own values. Willing emancipateth. That is the true doctrine of will and emancipation. So teacheth you, Zarathustra. No longer willing, and no longer valuing, and no longer creating. Ah, that great debility may ever be far from me. And also discerning, do I feel only my will's procreating and evolving delight? Friedrich Nietzsche, thus spake Zarathustra. A man can make a rule that eliminates others from the game. Individuals can make false rules, rules that are incongruent to the game involving other players. It is not the individual that makes the law. No intellect can play a game within its sole existence. There must be another. Let there be two intellects. They can play a game, but even still, something is missing. If the two intellects are exactly the same, then there is no need for rules. The one can always trust that the other will do what he will do. There is no difference between them. Therefore, the problem arises. Mistrust festers when there is difference. This is the problem of difference. I spoke about this in a video I made called The Blank Slate. Just because everyone starts out with a blank slate at the beginning of a game doesn't mean that they themselves are blank slates. In order to have a game with laws, we need the intellects playing the game to be different. They cannot be blank slates. This is a condition necessary for the existence of the game. But when we play the game, we give all the players a blank slate. It is a tragedy for a player to begin the game with a handicap, and an unfairness to others for a player to begin the game with an advantage. When we know about the differences at the start of the game, we may adjust the laws of the game in order to make it more balanced. It would not be a fair game otherwise. From these differences, we come up with laws. We can take this to a higher level of abstraction and say that it is difference that makes the law. And with every difference comes an accompanying antagonist. Where there is difference, there is antagonism. It is all fun and games to create laws for the players of the games we have created ourselves. But we did not create ourselves, and thus cannot create our own laws. We do our best to guess and infer what the laws of the lives we live are. We observe others and extract commonalities between people. We make laws from what is the same from different groups of people. It is a reinforcement cycle of differentiation and integration until a law is formed. A law that we can replicate in different groups of the same people. This is the scientific method. These inferred laws are still insufficient because they can never fully predict and account for the differences of being, meaning that players will always break them. As long as we are different, we will be inclined to sin. Our sin is inherited from the first differentiated intellect. Within everyone is the original sin. Difference is that which makes the law known to us. Difference is that which we transgress against. When we sin, when we fail to keep the law, when we hurt each other, what is intellect but a creation of difference? From difference, by difference, for difference. Genesis 1:26-27. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. From our reasoning earlier, we know that to truly forgive, you must take your own punishment from yourself for the transgressions against you. This is still an oversimplification. Forgiveness is much more complicated than that. In this verse, we learn that the first and most vital difference is that of sex. The most fundamental difference is the difference between man and woman, male and female. With every difference comes an accompanying antagonist, a murderer and a liar. He too is an intellect, the most proud one at that, always elusive, never fully seen, never really known, cunning and clever. The male, the female, and the serpent. You have probably come across these type of men that approach you out in public, not to know anything about you or make a request. No, they come to tell you that you need saving from that which you do not know. 1 Corinthians 2:2. For I determined not to know anything among you, save Jesus Christ and him crucified. You probably find them quite annoying. For some of you, you might hate them and all that they stand for, that they would walk around and preach a Christ crucified. Who are they to tell you that you are fundamentally sinful, that nurture has nothing to do with it? Romans 3:10-12. As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none that understandeth. There is none that seeketh after God. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. There is no blank slate. They tell of the Son, come to die for you. And you may ask, if he is the Son, then who is the Father? And they will reply with John 14:7-11. If ye had known me, you should have known my Father also. And from henceforth ye know him, and have seen him. Philip saith unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Jesus saith unto him, Have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, Show us the Father? Believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me. He doeth the works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake. A father punishes his own innocent son for the sins of others, but the Father is the Son, and the Son the Father. So in essence, he is punishing himself for the sins others have committed against him. And thus, all sin is atoned for. Even if this is so, what relevance is this to the sinners. A father punished his son in some distant land. What difference is that to me? You have taught me nothing. I have no relation to him or your story. Your intellect is your relation, and the difference between you and everyone else on the planet. Your lesson. Romans 10:9. That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. It is not until the lesson that you are forgiven. It is the lesson that forgives. The teachings of difference repeat themselves over and over again until you have learned. At the point of the lesson, you move from cyclical time to linear time. You obtain the blessing of waiting for the end. Psalms 32:1. Blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Time is an illusion. It only exists to facilitate the learning process. All there is lessons. The lesson is forever and forgives abundantly. Matthew 18:21-22. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus saith unto him, I say, not unto thee, until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Forgiveness is the most complex intellectual structure, similar to knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. He lives within you. He alters your thoughts, desires, and actions. He gives you life where you were once dead in sin. Forgiveness is tied with memory. To forget is not to forgive. To forgive is to replace a long memory in story form with a lesson. You keep the lesson and forget the story. The Trinity is indispensable.